So good afternoon everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you on behalf of CAs and Linguistics for the 5th day of the webinar, the role of linguistics in language teaching and learning. Dear participants, on behalf of CAs and Linguistics, it is my pride and privilege to introduce today's speaker, a man of manners, an eminent linguist of our country, Prof. Shunmugom. His competency and creativity with humor are his personality which binds everyone to his speech. To me, he is an encyclopedia of linguistics. He is a giant in Tamil linguistics. He who compared the traditional grammar with Chomsky theories. He had his master's degree in linguistics from AU-LINGUISTICS University in 1967. We are very happy to say that he is our alumni. And his PhD in linguistics from University of Pune in 1970. He served as a lecturer from 1973 to 1987 in the Institute of Kannada Studies at the University of Mysore, and as a reader and later as a professor and the head of Department of Linguistics at Bharathiyar University. His intellectual genius is known for his contribution, especially in semantics, in addition to his thought-provoking investigations in stylistics, comparative literature for his books, his numerous research papers which has been published by many national and international journals, and he has undertaken many research projects, and he has written and edited a number of books. His marked works include Purunmayal, that is semantics in Tamil, and language awareness and Tamil language style of Bharathiyar, Arvial, Vocal, Moli, etc. He has participated in more than 100 seminars and delivered innumerable lectures in various universities. His inspiring approaches in teaching have attracted most of the students, and furthermore told them to take him as a role model, including me. He is a creative writer and a trainer of teachers of various levels in modern methods and techniques of language teaching. He had been member of various committees related to UGC, UPSC, and in different boards in the University of India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, China, etc. He has been working towards the development of language and linguistics in collaboration with many states and several institutions. Sir, today we are very happy to have you here, sir, and I request you to take this floor, sir. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. I have the pleasure of getting myself associated with the activities of the Department of Linguistics, Center for Study in Linguistics at AU-LINGUISTICS University. They are actually.
Sir, sorry, your voice is
they are conducting a webinar on the role of linguistics in language teaching and learning. And this is the first lecture on pragmatics. And it is my duty to thank all the participants as well as the organizers, particularly Professor Saranya, the enthusiastic Professor Director of the Center for Study at AU University Linguistics Department, and his untiring and helping enthusiastic secretaries, associates, particularly Dr. Lalita Raja, Dr. Kukuswamy, Dr. Durai, and Dr. Nedinjaya for their role in bringing out this wonderful webinar in a very nice way. And I would like to thank all the participants also for giving me this wonderful opportunity and for listening to what I am going to talk about pragmatics. Now, pragmatics, first of all, I would like to say that pragmatics is nothing but the study of language use by the speakers. So this you keep in mind, and on that basis, I would like to bring some ideas regarding pragmatics. Gradually, I will be developing that. First of all, we would like to know that the language has two forms. Ferdinand de Saussure, famous linguist, he was the founder of structuralism in linguistics, and he has proposed that the language has two types. One is called as land, the other one is called as arrow. Land is considered to be the static variety of language, whereas arrow is considered to be the dynamic variety of language. If you consider land as the object, arrow is considered to be the process. That is, we are making use of land for speaking, for delivering lectures, for conversation, etc. So, land is the object and arrow is the speech or the process. Land is considered to be a system of science. According to Saussure, language or land is considered to be a system of science found in the mind of the native speakers. Mind of the speakers. It is a system of science and a set of processes or rules for combining the science into various figure science. And as far as the process is concerned, we can say with reference to words, you might have heard from the morphology section, that you have various processes like inflection, derivation, compounding, reduplication, suppletion, suffixation, etc. are the various types of processes involving different types of rules for combining the morphemes into words and words into other words. Then you have syntactic processes like compounding, embedding, relativization, nominalization, reflexivization, etc. These processes are normally used for combining the words into sentences and also sentences into other sentences. So language has two forms, land and arrow. Now, as far as the units of language are concerned, language makes use of sentences. Sentence is considered to be a sequence of grammatical elements, sequence of words. But in arrow, when we are speaking, we are making use of sentences, but these sentences are called as utterances. So utterance is anything that you utter. You may utter a sound, for example, a sound you may utter in order to express your pain. Sometimes you may utter words, for example, yes, no, etc. These are the words you use to communicate. Sometimes we make use of sentences. So utterance is anything that you utter while you are using the language, while you are speaking. And land actually is made up of science and science of meaning. So land will be described in terms of this sign meaning. Whereas arrow, since it is a speech, it is speaking, we have to make use of the utterances, and the meaning is actually involved in parallel is the speaker meaning. So the speaker understands the meaning of the words and sentences. Along with that, he also provides some meaning to the utterances he hears, and thereby the communication will be taking place or interaction will be taking place in an effective and efficient manner. So language has two forms. Now, how speakers use the language is selected. So pragmatics, as I told, is mainly concerned with the use of language. So how people use the language. If you take the speaking aspect of the language, who is actually speaking will be the first question. You have different types of people living involved in speaking the language. For example, you may have the speaker as male or female. You may have the speaker belonging to different age groups, adult or children. Different type of status People with a different type of status will be making use of the language. Caste, communities, class, profession, all these types of people will be using the language. So, speech is considered to be uttered or used by different kinds of people belonging to a particular social situation or cultural situation. What actually they do with the language? We talk about language use. What do they use with the language? First, I would like to say, mainly language is used for naming people. Whenever a child is born, immediately given a name as an identification mark for the child. So naming is the first type of use of language, and based on that name only we have different type of addressing systems also. For example, you have different type of addressing system on the basis of kinship, on the basis of names, on the basis of their bodily characters, mental characters, etc. You name them and you address them on that basis. Another aspect of language use is informing. Whatever information you have, you want to share that information to the other people, so you use the language. Sometimes we make use of language for performing certain actions. For example, if the principal of a college says, today we declare, today the college is closed, he is making an utterance. Along with the utterance, he is actually performing an action of closing the institution. So closing is considered to be an action performed by him. So language is used for giving information, not only for that, for performing some kind of actions. While we are telling, or informing something, we normally involve ourselves in two types of activities. That is, we inform something about the speaker. The speaker, when he is telling something, he says something about his status, about him, he says. Sometimes he says something about the listener. Sometimes he will be talking about others, which may be some other people or some other. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Please, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So whenever we are informing people, we are giving some information. The information may be pertaining to me, or it may be pertaining to the listener, or it may be pertaining to others or other things. And even if you say something about I, that is the speaker, it may be about the past incidents, that is remembrances, or it may be the present things which are happening today, or it may be a future of some kind of events which you are expecting, some expectations, etc. So besides this, nothing else will be done by the, will be told by the speakers. So we will be talking about me, or the listener, or some other people, and about past or present and future. So that is telling. Sometimes when you don't have some information, you ask people to give some information, eliciting information. That for that we use the questioning activity. So then sometimes we order the people to do certain things. Sometimes we explain, that means our attitudes, our emotions, our expressions, etc. will be given through language. So for that we use the language. So as far as the use of language, I can list naming, calling, informing, performing, telling, questioning, honoring, planning, etc. as the base of the things which you for which you use the language. Sometimes you use various other ways also in which we are using the language. For example, to express the attitude, your own attitude you may use. Or sometimes you use language to make people laugh. Sometimes you make you also language for commenting the behavior of others. Sometimes you appreciate with the help of language, or depreciate, that means you will be condemning people, etc. So in that way, different ways in which you use the language. Now those people who are interested in explaining the ways in which language are used in cultures, they classify that language can be used in a logical way. For example, whenever you are explaining certain scientific concepts, scientific things, scientific discoveries, etc., you are making use of the logical way of you are presenting what kind of data is there, what type of analysis you have performed, what type of result you have got. So you are presenting it in that logical way. This is logical way of using the language. The second we call as the emotional way of using language. Sometimes to move the people, sometimes to create some kind of impression about you, sometimes to make the people evoke, about their feelings, we use that is we call as emotional thing, and there are certain things we call as cultural way of speaking. So whenever we are speaking, we sometimes make use of our cultural items or our cultural standard vocabulary or standard expressions for using. For instance, we make use of proverbs, etc. whenever we say something. So this type of activity, so we have this type of activity in the language. Okay. Then Sassoon has pointed out that language has two forms. And later, the ethno-linguists, particularly those who are concerned with communication, ethnography of communication, they have identified speaking and the components of speaking. The components of speaking are generally identified in terms of an acronym on the speaking. S-P-E-A-K-I-N-G, speaking. The first letter S stands for setting, where you actually speak, at what time you speak. The setting is considered to be an important one. The second is personalities, the persons. Who are the persons involved in speaking? You may have writer, you may have the speaker, you may have the listener. In some cultures, the person who wants to speak will not be talking directly to the hearer. He will have a mediator, a middle person to do all these things. For example, if American president wants to talk to our Indian president or Indian prime minister, not only he will make use of the ambassador to establish some kind of connection or link between these two people, and they will be. So in some cultures, the kings, for example, they will not directly speak. They will speak through the ministers or through the Talabadis. So you will have that. So speaker is the second thing. Third thing is end. What is the purpose for which you are using that language? You have different types of purpose, and on that basis you use. So E is considered to be end or purpose. A is considered to be the act, speech act. You have, well, for speaking, you have some intentions. You will have some intention for speaking. So that we call as act. K stands for key. Key means sometimes you raise your voice, you lower your voice, you sometimes make gaps, sometimes you use it in a blurred way. So the key is different modalities in which you use the language. When you are angry, you are using it in a particular way. When you are sober, you will be using it in a different way. So key is considered to be the modalities. Instrumentalities means you may speak through phone, or you may talk through a cell phone, or you may talk to the computer, or through a microphone, etc. So you have different ways of using the instrument. So I stands for instrument, N stands for norm. What do you mean by norm? There are the cultures and societies actually make use of different norms for speaking. For example, while you are eating, you are not supposed to speak, especially in our cultures. While you are eating, you are not supposed to speak anything. And during night, for example, you are not allowed to speak or utter the name of snakes or demons, etc. So there are certain restrictions. If we go further, you will have a lot of other examples available. So we have norms, and the G stands for genre. Genre means one who is different varieties of speech you will find. That is genre. For example, if we take Tamil, we had three types of genres. The original big genres. ELSI Narakam. After that, we have introduced Arabian Tamil as Nanakam Tamil, fourth one. And within that, if you look at the poetry situation, you have different varieties of genres. For example, you have Natakura Padangal, you have ஆற்றுப்படை பாடல்கள், you have கலம்பகம், பிள்ளைத்தமிழ், and all those aspects are there. So, speaking is an acronym which talks about the setting, person, end, act, instrumentalities, norms, and genres. So, this is the way in which the speech has been described by the people who are involved in ethnographic communication. Now we are moving to the third distinction. First, I talked about the difference between land and parole. Second, I said something about the use of language. Now we are moving to sign. What is a sign? A sign is anything that stands for some reference. Sign is any item that stands for some reference. Normally, we used to classify signs under three categories, namely icons, index, and symbols. An icon is a sign which refers to something which is similar to the sign. For example, there is an object called a dog in the external world, and in order to represent the object, you make a picture of the dog, and the relationship between the picture of the dog and the dog, original dog, the relationship is similar. So such items, a signs which shows a similarity relationship with the reference, is called as icon. In a computer screen, you will find different icons actually on the basis of similarity relationship. Index, for example, you have a dog outside, that is a reference, and you hear the barking sound. Barking sound, from that you understand that nearby there is a dog. So on the basis of the sound, you are getting the reference in your mind. So index is considered one which is in contiguous relationship with the sign. You say sometimes smoke is the index of one. Third one, you have a symbol. Symbol is anything that is referred by linguistic items. For example, you have a dog, and the name you have given in your language is Noi, or in dog, or in yes, this is you consider a symbol because there is no contributing relationship. There is only arbitrary relationship. This is we call in Tamil as illegally paid, arbitrary relationship. So signs may be either iconic, indexical, or symbolic. Sometimes we classify signs as verbal and non-verbal. Full sign, whatever you see.
Participants, please mute your mic. We are not able to hear presenter's voice.
So we are talking about the icon, index, and symbol. Sometimes the signs may be verbal signs or non-verbal signs. Non-verbal, for instance, you may be using the language. Sometimes your body parts and your position, sitting, or postures, etc., for communicating something. Suppose you see in a park the two people, a male and a female, they are very close to each other. And that is a sign which shows that they are quite intimate. In the same park, where you find a lady and male facing not towards each other but away from each other, and they are turning their face, immediately that conveys that there may be some dispute between these two people. So, depending upon the position, you identify the meanings. So, such things are called as non-verbal items. And verbal items is whatever you say, whatever you speak, whatever you write, etc. Signs has to be an important aspect of your life. Everywhere you will find signs. In every aspect of your life, you will find signs. For example, you have national signs. Every country has signs of its own. For example, its own flag, its own animals, its own word, etc. So you have many. Religions will have different kinds of symbols. For example, we have Om, Hindu for cross, Christians and moon for Islamists. So you have different type of religion. Political symbols are there, all the party symbols and party flags, etc. You have business symbols. For example, different business institutions uh, will have their own symbols, own brand names, etc. So education also has symbols. For example, all the universities will have some kind of emblem where you will be writing educated and educated, educated. So in that way you have different symbols. Symbol is the basis of human life. We create symbols, we worship symbols, we wage a war against other communities and other nations because of the symbols. And we lose certain good things also with the symbols. So symbol is part and parcel of our life. Now what we do with the symbols, we are creating the symbol. We are popularizing the symbols. And whenever a new product is given, you will give a name for that and you will try to popularize the symbol. For example, if you see any TV advertising, the TV, the brand, now you will have a lot of repetition of these same symbols, for example, TV or Dept or whatever TV, maybe you will have their own emblem, repeat again and again. Sometimes you make the symbol as profane, sacred. Sometimes you make the symbol as ugly. And sometimes that is why we create some euphemistic expressions also. You have a word for you have a word toilet, for example. If you consider toilet as a good word, it's an animal word. You create different type of euphemistic expressions. For example, you say that it is a comfort station or washing closet. So in that way you make use of different type of expressions, euphemistic expressions. Now we are coming to the other, this is the fourth point, that is semiotics. Semiotics is a science study of science. Charles Morrison divided the study of science under three headings. He classified this as syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Syntax is the study of the relationship of a sign with another sign. And signs are in a sequence or in a hierarchical fashion. What type of relationship that is there between, that is being expressed through the sign. The sign relationship is one. The second is called semantics, how a sign is related to the external objects or the internal concepts or ideas in your mind, how it is related. So it has some kind of referential connection. That is being described as semantics. And pragmatics is actually concerned with the study of the linguistic science, the relationship of linguistic science to the user. I mean, how the language user actually makes use of these sentences, makes use of these references, makes use of these meanings, etc. So, semantics may be considered under three categories: syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Now, pragmatics is actually concerned with the language use, as I have already pointed out. So the next point that I'm going to discuss is the speaker is actually involved in using the language. So the speaker is actually performing different type of linguistic act, and that we can consider as part of pragmatics. What type of activities in which the speaker is involved? From the point of view of sign, we say that he is involved in syntactic activity, semantic activity, and pragmatic activity. Syntactic activity means the activity of using sentences or utterances, combining them in an appropriate way, so that he can speak fully or he can converse with other people. So in that way, we say that language is used, or the speaker uses language for performing syntactic activity. For example, there are two types of activities in the English word. One is selecting the already existing utterances, that means selecting the sentences the variant forms of the sentences and the deviant form of sentences. He makes use of these things, and he actually creates these signs or patterns. For example, sentences you have different varieties. For example, you have declarative sentences, imperative sentences, interrogative sentences, explanatory sentences, and sometimes you will find the variants of these sentences also. For example, you will have the finite form of the sentence, non-finite form of the sentence, etc. So the speaker actually selects different forms of sentences and sequences them in a particular order. While he is speaking, while he is conversing with other people, or while he is even writing. So, in what way he is actually sequenced? First of all, he will be making repetition of statement. Repetition is a very common type thing you will make. For example, you have this Vinayacham. We have Vinayacham. Vinayacham means the relative, the verbal parts. From the sentence you can make this relative participle as well as verbal participle. Now take a verbal participle as a thing and you can unite continuously, repeat and continuously, and thereby you can select that HM or Vinayacham or verbal participle as a basic thing, and you can repeat it. In normal conversation also you will find, in film scripts also you will find, for example, I give an example. வெள்ளிக்கிழமை காலையில் எழுந்து குளித்துவிட்டு வாசலை கூட்டி கோலம் போட்டு அடுப்பை பற்ற வைத்து காஃபி போட்டு அப்புறம் நடந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை செய்யும். This in this sentence we are continuously using a set of expressions, the related verbal participle expression continuously, and thereby I am making use of this for sequencing the item. I'll give you one or two examples from film songs that I'm listening. You take an example from Tirupur. One utters the taste as imperative form. Maravartha Mastra Kennedy. Thuravartha Thundapatul Tupalanatu. He makes use of imperative forms like Maravartha and Thuravartha, combines them in a particular repetitive way, and he produces a particular literary form. Likewise, in speech also we make use of this thing. I give you a children's song. How the end of the song, end of the utterance is used repeatedly. In Tamil we call this as Andadi. Anda means end, and that becomes the adi of the second utterance. For example, you have Aridu Manadaravalaridu, Manadaravalaridu. So Manadaravalaridu is converted, it is transformed like Manadaravalaridu. Manadaravalaridu, Kun Kurudu Sebudu Vedaniki Pravatalaridu, Kun Kurudu Sebudu Vedaniki Pravatalaridu, Tanamum Tavamum Tansayaridu, Tanamum Tavamum Tansayaridu, Manadaravalaridu Vedaniki. You take this item. The end of the utterance you take as the beginning of the second utterance and you manipulate it in a particular way. Thereby, you are creating some kind of stylistic impression. You take another film song, where he makes use of the question form and repeating it. Aadiya aatam enna, pesiya vaarthai enna, thedi selvam enna, thirandhathu sutram enna, Kudu Kudu Kudu. A film song. Here he makes use of this question form and repeat it again. Okay? So, or you can have an example like Bharathiyar's example, a negative form is being used. Poludum Diyavilai, Purkodi Kubavilai, Vadivartha Villayum, Maramum Tungavilai, Marakam Diyavilai, Wild Magachilai. Here he makes use of the negative form and repeating it again and again. So this type of repetition you will find in this type of activity. Speaker's activity is systematic activity. He selects certain references which are available, forms are available in the language, modified forms or normal forms, and he uses it for making it speech, combining them. Okay. So this is syntactic activity. The second activity in which the speaker is involved is called semantic activity. In the semantic activity, he selects certain sequences, he selects certain concepts, and he conjoins them and combines them in a particular order. There are different ways in which you can combine the items. The first utterance may be a cause, and the second utterance may be an effect, or it may be a condition consequence sequence, or it may be a general and specific sequence, or it may be opposing sequences, or inclusion sequences. So different type of concept means anything you can take. For example, I am telling him, I asked him to read this particular lesson. He does not listen to my talk. You say, what you are telling is, you have given a cause, you have given a situation, and the other person is not obeying that situation. So presenting a situation and not complying to what you are requesting. So in that way, you arrange the sequences in this particular order. Again, for your purpose, for your understanding, I'll give two examples. One from Tirukkural. Tirukkural, opposing items are taken and it is given. For example, you have Adaktham, Amararul Vikum, Adangamai, Arul Vitu. So here, Tiruvallur talks about two things, Adaktham and Adangamai. What is that? What the Adaktham will bring, and what this Adangamai will bring. So opposing concepts are taken and clubbed together. So, Tina Sutta Pullarum, Arade Navina Sutta. It talks about the Pun and Vadu. And one is through fire and another is through hand. So in that way, concepts are taken and sequenced in a particular fashion in order to give some kind of aesthetic sensibility. Now, I give another example where cause and effect are used for the presentation of poetic. This line from Bharathiyar. Soodada Malaranin, Toyada Punalanin, Adada Aranganin, Anban Illai என்பதனால். So Anban Illai, there is a cause, and because of that, she has not not doing well in that way. Okay. Soodada Malaranin, Toyada Punalanin, Adada Aranganin, Anban Illai என்பதனால். தமிழற்ற நாடானேன், தலையற்ற உடலானேன், தமிழ்வற்ற தொழிலானேன், காதலன் இல்லாததனா, மிளற்றாத தமிழானேன், வேண்டாத குழலானேன், அலையாத விருந்தானேன், அழகன் இல்லை ஆதனையான். He is bringing out a situation where there is no lover, and because of that she has lost all the activities, or she has lost the qualities. So that is being mentioned. This is an example which shows that concepts can be combined together in a particular fashion. Cause and effect, etc. Now we are coming to pragmatic activity. So when we talk about pragmatics, speaker is becoming very important, and the speaker is involved in three kinds of activities. One activity is syntactic activity, where he selects the sentences and sequences them in a particular order. The second is semantic activity, where he selects certain concepts and bringing it in a particular form, sequencing them. Third is a pragmatic activity. This is an activity where the speaker is actually giving special meaning, his own meaning to the utterances he hears. And one particular writing we call as deictic reference, deixis. What do you mean by deixis? There are certain expressions in the language which has a general meaning, and the meaning, general meaning, will become a specific meaning whenever the speaker is using it in the context. For example, nan is a word, I. It has a general meaning that it refers to the speaker. And who the speaker is will be understood only when the speaker says, I am talking now, I am the speaker. When I say I, it refers to Shunmugom. If you use the word I, it will be referring to you. Likewise, I am using the word you means now. I am using the word means those who are listening to this talk. It is you. So in that way, sometimes the speaker actually gives the contextual meaning. Certain expressions are there. These expressions are associated by the speaker with the contextual elements. What is the contextual element you find in a speech event or speech situation? Speaker is there, hearer is there, time is there, location is there, and whatever he speaks is also there. All these items are called as, all the items are called as the situational elements. The speaker only makes clarification about the situational entities. And this deixis, so deixis means pointing out. The speaker is actually pointing out what is the real meaning in the particular context. This is the contextual meaning. And in that you have personal deixis. Personal that, the speaker talks about himself and talks about the speaker, and that we call as the person deixis. And there are different varieties of them. The person deixis, personal reference, in different languages will have different aspects. For example, it may represent gender, it may represent honor also. For in Tamil is not the case. In Thai language, the speaker is speaking. If the speaker is male, he will use the pronoun form hum. For saying I am coming, he will say hum coming. If the speaker is a lady, she will say Deechan coming. Instead of I coming, she will say Deechan coming. That means the male will use pronoun I will be in a particular way, and the female will use it in a way. Similarly, when in Tamil, you may use you as an addressing term. If you use ni, it has one meaning. If you use neer, one meaning. Ningal, another meaning. Tangal, etc. So different type of honorific expressions are there. Ni will be used for equal people. This is why you will find it in Golgapia also. You might have come across the words E, Ta, Kodu. E will be used one by the lower person to the higher person. Ta to the equals. Kodu, a higher person to the lower person. So E, Ta, Kodu, this and the social stratification is being reflected there. So we use ni, ningal, tangal, etc. Okay. And sometimes in order to give more honor to the person, we say Tangal in the Rakali Namaranga. This is a polite way, more polite way. Tangal Samugam in the Asanatai Alangarikumavu. The Asanatai Tangal. In Urdu, you find these items. Tasrif laiye. Go வாங்கன்னு சொல்லி tasrif laiye. ரொம்ப மேன்மை மிக உங்களுடைய மேன்மை மிக உடம்பு காண்பீங்கன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இந்த tasrif laiye, tasrif laiye. உங்கள் மேன்மையான உடம்பை எங்கே வையுங்கள். So honorific expressions are there in languages. And sometimes in some languages, set expressions are there to address. In English, for instance, if you want to address a judge, you have to say Your Honor. If you want to address a king, you have to say His Majesty. If you want to address a queen, you have to say Her Majesty. If you want to address the president, Mr. President. In our language is also our language is also not that it also has its own standards for addressing. For example, we make use of the name of the villages from where he is coming. For example, we talk about Bharathiyar, or we use addressing language. For example, Coimbatore. So likewise, in Cine world you will find so you have different types of addressing terms of like in the English situation, but there are set terms that we use on. So this is person tactics. The second one is discourse tactics. During the speech, a speaker utters certain utterances first, and in the second utterance, he will be using to refer to that utterance, he will use a Prof. For example, you may say, நான் வீட்டுக்கு வருகிறேன் என்று சொன்னேன். I told that I will come to your house. அது அவனுக்கு பிடிக்கவில்லை. That was not accepted, or that was not congenial to him. So the adi is actually referring to the earlier utterance. நான் வீட்டுக்கு வருகிறேன் என்று சொன்னேன். That is being referred as it. So this we call as discourse tactics. The speaker actually refers by means of the word it, the already made utterance. So this is called discourse tactics. Sometimes it may bring ambiguity also. For example, they have this ambiguity. For example, நண்பன் வீட்டுக்கு வருவதாக என் மனைவி சொன்னார். நான் அதை நம்பவில்லை. அதை, what is the reference for அதை? நண்பன் வீட்டுக்கு வருவான் என்று சொன்னதா, நண்பன் வீட்டுக்கு வருவான் என்றதா, அல்லது நண்பன் வருவான் வீட்டுக்கு என்று மனைவி சொன்னதா? So அது, so you will find two types of meaning will be given for such type of utterances. So ambiguity will be created in discourse tactics. The other tactics is called spatial tactics. The speaker, while speaking, makes use or makes reference to the place where he speaks and the place about which he speaks by means of certain proximal and distant expressions. நான் இங்கே பேசுகிறேன், அவன் அங்கே தூங்குகிறான். நான் இங்கே means I am talking about my situation, the speech event. அங்கே I am pointing out some other place where somebody is sleeping. So proximal and distant is maintained. Sometimes in place expressions, you may find ambiguity. You take the example, now Pinnara, it has double interpretation. It has a spatial interpretation as well as a temporal interpretation. Spatial. I am coming just behind you. Very spatial. I will be coming after you have left. That means time. So you will have this ambiguous type of situation. And sometimes the space will be represented by time factor also. If you ask the distance of Ernakulam, normally what answer you expect? You expect that 250 miles, 300 kilometers, something like that you may give the distance. Sometimes you say temporal expression for that. What is a temporal expression? You say 5 மணி நேரம். What is the distance of Ernakulam from Coimbatore? 5 மணி drive. 5 மணி நேரம். So you give some kind of temporal expression for that, for the spatial axis. No, temporal axis means you are finding out the time in which you are speaking and the time in which you will be speaking in the future. For example, you say நேற்று நான் பேசினேன். இன்று நான் பேசுகிறேன், நாளையும் நான் பேசுவேன். So இன்று, நேற்று, நாளை, etc. These are expressions used by the speaker to point out the time of his speech. இன்று நான் பேசுகிறேன் means it refers to 31st July 2020. நேற்று நான் பேசினேன் refers to நேற்று and refer to period time. The actual meaning is the speaker is giving நேற்று நான் பேசினேன் means 30th July 2020. So temporal expressions are there. Then there is another expression called social tactics. Social tactics means speaking about the honor of the people. You are making use of certain honorific expressions to maintain the status, to keep the face of the people. Face means, it's a term used by social linguists, face. Everybody, every person will be interested in always making his face, that is, his face should not be tarnished. Every speaker, every person will be interested in keeping his face in a good condition, and he expects nobody to tarnish his image or face. So, in order to maintain the face, sometimes you use certain expression, that is honorific expression you use. I have already pointed out that. And this honorific nature, social dialectics, actually make people to avoid naming of the people and naming of addressing the people. For example, in Tamil Nadu, in olden days, the wife will not spell the name of the husband because it is considered to be a taboo. Why it is a taboo? If you are addressing the husband with a name, addressing the husband with a name, it is considered to be a non-honorific act. You should not address the name of that is, or you cannot address the name of the king directly, right? So you avoid it. So one interesting example you might have heard: one lady's husband's name is Kumani, and when census people came, what is the name of your husband? She told Kundaila Vakiram, there is Kundaila Vakiram, Koil Adikiram. The Chetan, my husband gave that. Kundaila Vakiram, Koil Adikiram, Kumani, says it again. So likewise, you avoid. And even in our elder generation, they, for example, my grandmother will not address my grandfather, even she does not pronounce the name of a person. And it so happened that my name was actually derived from his name. That is, my grandfather's name is given to me. And suppose you want to call me, my grandmother wants to call my name. Because Shunmugom is the name of her husband. So we will have another name. For example, I have a name, Murugam. So if you go to my place, if you say that Murugam would engage in Gatan Chilman, or you have to say Flash Mumbla would, for example, if you say Nakisam would engage in Gatan Chilman, another or fair Surendran will go Penirna. Surendran, I'm very another Surendran will go back. And the boy on the party line, Nakajanga, Sulukia, where the parents are surrender. So you will have just double names given the situation because of the honor, social tactics is important. So diasis means the speaker actually referring to certain things in the context. And this we call as the reference of the speaker, that is diasis. The next point is about the speech act. Whenever a person is making speaking, he makes utterances, all right. He understands the meaning carried by the utterances, but sometimes he gives a special meaning, intentions are there. For example, if you want to understand doing, what is the intention? What is the speech act? Doing actions through utterance. You may utter certain utterances in order to convey some information that is constated. And sometimes you use utterances to perform certain things. For example, if I go home and the door is open, I ask my wife, I am making a question to her. I am making a question. Immediately my wife runs to the door and closes it. It is a question. And what she understood is that I am asking her to do the job of closing the door. That means I am giving her a command or a request. So what you are, suppose you want to know what is a speech act, you have to ask, give an utterance, you should ask the question, what you do with that? What is the meaning of that? What you do with that? If you understand what you do with that, then you understand the speech act. So there are different types of speech acts. For example, you make promises, you make requests, you sometimes praise people, you sometimes you condemn people. Okay. So normally people classify the speech acts under two. At calm state. State means they are giving, the utterances are used for giving information. Performatives, the utterances used for performing certain acts. Suppose in a church situation, somebody is getting married, the father or the religious leader says, it means by uttering the utterance, the leader or the spiritual leader or the guru conducts or performs the marriage. So performing the marriage is the action carried out by the mother. Sometimes you say that sambar ரொம்ப நல்லா நல்ல திவ்யமா சாப்பிடும். What does it mean? What is a speech act? What is the action? What is the action? Say we are praising it. Sometimes sambar வாயில வைக்க முடியல. சாம்பார வாயில வைக்க முடியல. What you are doing? You are actually condemning, not praising, but you are condemning. So in that way, all your actions, all your utterances will have some underlying speech act. Speech act is nothing but the utterances carrying certain actions which are intentional. It is inside you, it is not overt. So we say direct speech act and indirect speech act. Direct means radio ரொம்ப வால்யூமா இருக்கும். It means you are making a request to lower the volume of the radio. So you can directly say get out, or you can politely say, indirectly you can say, sometimes you make this up. For example, if you are applying for American universities, they will write you a neat letter praising all your affidavit, your characteristic features, everything. They say you have tried their level best to fit you in a particular university program with some scholarship. Unfortunately, you could not do it. So thank you, and we will make it next time. So this is a very polite way of not spoiling your face, not having any kind of conflict you are using. So speech act, another way of classification is locutionary act, illocutionary act, and perlocutionary. Locutionary act means anything that you utter is locution. Illocution means anything you say with some intention is illocution. Perlocution means anything you say with the expectation of somebody doing something, making the hearer to do something, and it is called illocution. There are other types of utterances also. For example, constative you can say, Mananda Kingdom. We are talking about this statement. Performative, in the Kaloriki Budumura is sending in a performative. Locutionary means illocutionary, your intention is perlocutionary, you will taniya pesanuma, he is making a perlocutionary act. That means that way Another activity in which he is involved is presupposition. The speaker, while he is speaking, he is involved in presupposition. What is presupposition? You have some common ground created. You assume certain things and you make your utterances. For example, தம்பிக்கு திரும்ப மாமியன்னு ஒருத்தர் கேட்கிறாரு. So the utterance shows that the speaker has made an assumption that the hearer has a brother. So whenever you are making some kind of utterances, you make some kind of assumptions. On the basis of the assumption only you build up. So in grammatical terminology, we talk about the terminologies. We talk about the rhyme and theme. Theme and rhyme, all of the rhyme and theme. The type of consumption is based on the ground you are making. Certain things you assume, and on that basis you say something. So you assume that she has got married and she has a partner and she has a child, etc. So all these assumptions are here. So that we call as presupposition. And sometimes you may have presupposition of the utterances, and sometimes you have the speaker presupposition. And the next aspect the speaker is doing is inferencing sentences. For example, whenever you hear an utterance, the utterance some other meaning other than the meaning of the utterance will be inferred by the people. That is called inference. This we call as implication. The implicator means creating meaning by the speaker, which is not found in the utterance, but on his own. That means the speaker should have sufficient knowledge and experience in order to make the inferences. And these inferences, suppose somebody is asking you a question, money ennachu. The other person is answering, Suryan Talaikku mela irukku. From Suryan Talaikku mela irukku, you understand that it may be 12 o'clock also. It is noon, 12 o'clock. So he is making an inference because of his experience. That is, if the sun is on the top of your head, it will be noon. The sun will be either on the left hand side or the right hand side, depending upon the position in which you stand. It may be morning or evening. So sometimes the knowledge is very important, and Grice, Professor Grice has pointed out that we understand utterances because we follow certain cooperative principles. Cooperative principles means it has different accents. They talk about the quality maxim. You assume that the speaker always gives you quality information, true information. On that basis only you understand. Sometimes quantity, the speaker may give you quantified information. That means neither more nor less, and obviously he will make you understand things. And manner maxims, the way in which you communicate, and relevant maxim, related to the topic only he will be talking. Irrelevant things he will not say. So in that way, there are certain maxims and principles adopted by the people, both the speaker and the hearer, for understanding this item. And sometimes what happens, you interpret, you make inferences, interpolate it, and thereby only understand the real conversation. Otherwise, whatever the speaker says, from that you cannot understand fully. Suppose someone says that நான் நேற்று கோயிலுக்கு போயிருந்தேன், நேற்று நான் கோயிலுக்கு போயிருந்தேன், 1 மணிக்குள்ள திரும்பிடுவோம். And 1 மணிக்குள்ள. So hearing that the utterance, the hearer, what he will infer, depending upon his own interest, he will infer a lot of things. For example, ஒரு கோயிலுக்கு போயிருப்பாரு, அந்த கோயிலுக்கு முன்னால ஏதாவது போயிட்டுலாம் முன்னால காலையில் எதை போடணும்னா காலையில் இருப்பாரு, அப்புறம் அந்த பூஜைக்கு சாமான் வாங்கியிருப்பாரு, உள்ள கியூல நின்று போயிருப்பாரு, அப்புறம் பூஜை சாமான் எல்லாம் கொடுத்துருப்பாரு, காணிக்கை போட்டிருப்பாரு, திருநாரம் வாங்கி தேய்ச்சிருப்பாரு, வெளில வந்திருப்பாரு, சுற்றி சுற்றிருப்பாரு. இவ்வளவும் ஒவ்வொரு நபருக்குள்ள முடிச்சிருக்கு. இவ்வளவும் யூ ட்ரை டு இன்ஃபர் ஃப்ரம் தட். கோயிலுக்கு போனேன்னு சொன்னோடனே, சர்ச்சுக்கு போனேன்னு சொன்னோடனே என்ன prasanga நடந்திருக்கும், prasanga கேட்டபாடு. So you infer a lot of things on the basis of the world of knowledge you have, the experience you have. It is inference. Suppose somebody says, என் மனைவி சமைக்கிறது. What type of inference you will make? Sometimes you will make that wife may not be well. She may be ill, indisposed. Sometimes between the husband and wife there may be some kind of conflict, some kind of dispute. Because of that she might not have prepared food. And sometimes the wife may be interested in going to the hotel, making the husband resolve go to the hotel. So with that intention she might not have. So depending upon your interest, your this thing, you make inferences. Sometimes whatever inference you make will be flouted. Flouted means that it will be destroyed. Suppose என் மனைவி சமைக்கவில்லை, you make an inference and ask him, ஏன் அவங்களுக்கு உடம்பு சரியில்லையா? சொல்றாங்க, எனக்கு மனைவியே இல்லையே. So that means he is flouting. So whatever you are inferring, that inference is actually discarded. On the basis of jokes, the jokes also will be used on that basis only. For example, you have a situation. A doctor is asking the nurse to verify the pulse of the patient. And the pulse of our the lady says, the nurse says, male vesicular endocarditis. So here, what do you expect? What do you infer is something different. Is the noyaliki pulse of our means what the doctor expects is that it will be, the pulse rate. It will be given in numbers, etc. But instead of that, she says, male vesicular endocarditis. When the pulse is. So you are actually discarding the inference. So such type of things always happen in the conversational situation. And you may hear these bits in the TV. ஒரு கிலோ அஜித் கறிக்கும், the fellow, the vendor, the meat vendor, ஒரு கிலோ அஜித் கறிக்கும், சார் ஒரு கிலோ தலை கறிக்கும். So Ajit is called as that. So he makes use of this to make a joke. So inference is considered to be an important factor, and sometimes it is flouted, and sometimes it happens only because of the experiences you have. Okay, next point I would like to discuss is the two more points. So the pragmatics also deals with the pragmatic knowledge. We have grammatical competence, grammatical knowledge. Lexical competence, lexical knowledge. Semantic competence, semantic knowledge. But what is pragmatic competence? Under that, normally we can say that pragmatic competence means the knowledge of using the language. Generally, it means with whom you have to talk, at what time you have to talk, when you have to talk, where you have to talk, why you have to talk, purpose of your talk. If you have all this type of knowledge, then you will call it as pragmatic knowledge. Specifically, if you want to say the pragmatic knowledge is the knowledge of the intention, present in the intention, how your intention will be present. You don't want to, you hate a particular person, and you should not show directly that you hate the person. How you will make use of the utterances, how you will use it. If you have that kind of knowledge, then you will call it as a pragmatic knowledge. Normally, we say pragmatic knowledge includes grammatical knowledge. What do you mean by grammatical knowledge? The knowledge of knowing whether some utterances are grammatical or ungrammatical. And discourse competence, discourse knowledge, whether the utterances that you make are appropriate to the context or not appropriate, whether it's meaningful or meaningless, appropriate. Then this is the organizational aspect of knowledge. Then you should have some kind of social cultural knowledge. For example, you should adopt the cooperative principles, you should adopt the politeness principles, and try not to do it. And finally, interpretation competence. Interpretation means how your intention should be manifested through the utterances. Different types of different ways of revealing your intention is available in the language. Different type of utterances are there. Sometimes you may make use of the negatives, sometimes you may make use of the positives, or passives, or you have double negatives. Double negative means you don't want to make a positive statement as such, but you make a double negative statement, etc. So illustration, all these aspects will constitute what we call as the pragmatic competence. That is, grammatical competence, grammatical discourse competence, appropriateness of utterances, social-linguistic competence, whom you have to speak what to your caste group, how you will speak to the other caste group. For example, the persons coming from Natioanl district, for example, while he is talking with this, for example, South African person, he will wantonly avoid certain expression. One joke situation, right? When you were transferred from one place, my wife was telling the person, from the lorry you have to take this thing bags, etc. So he was asking the servant, Payer. What she meant is Payer in Kanyakumari dialect, Payer means slowly, without any damage. Slowly, Payer. That fellow was the reason. Madam, Payer the table. So, pai for him is baggage, whereas for her, paiya means slowly. So, such type of conversation. Philippi, for example, so once it so happened, in my case, in a Hindi situation, I went to the market and asked him, I was learning English. I asked him. To the business person, the shop owner, Dil ka tel diya. I was wondering, why this fellow is asking. Now in Tamil, you don't have a distinction between ka and da. That's a funny. So I simply use the word dil ka tel. But the dil ka tel actually means the oil of the heart. Dil means heart. I have to say til ka tel. Til means it's the same. So such type of variations in your language or dialect, etc., will create certain problems. So pragmatic competence involves all these types of knowledge. Now, you are interested in conversation and you are conversing with the people. Okay? Speech is considered to be the ultimate result. Sometimes you make speeches. And already I have pointed out that speech may be logical or emotional or cultural. I'll give you a small example for the Martin Luther King to show how it is. I told you that logical speeches you find in literary things and in scientific writings. Emotional speech to evoke emotion. He was interested in evoking the interest of the people, emotions of the people, to unite the white people and to this. And in his famous speech, I have a dream. I might have heard it again. I am reminding. I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heart of opposition, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. So this, this is an emotive type of speech which actually brings various, evokes emotions so that the Negroes and the white people will come together and sit at one particular day. That was the dream of the king, and so this is an emotional speech. Now I am giving two more points. One, the concept of speaking and the concept of speech, even though it has become very popular nowadays because of the Western influence, our grammarians and our literary people have the awareness of speaking and speech. I give you a quotation from Tiruvallur and a quotation from Tiruvallur. In Tiruvallur, you will find how the speech should function. He talks about several types of speech. For example, இனியவை குரல், வாய்மை கூறுதல், திட்டம் கடிதல், சொல் வன்மை, etc. These are some of the items which is actually concerned with the speaking and the speech. புறங்கூறாமை, பயனில சொல்லாமை, பொய்மை கூறாமை. I give one திருக்குறள். கேட்டார் பிணிக்கும் தகவையாய் கேளாரும் வேட்பு மொழிவதாம் சொல். How you should speak. கேட்டார் பிணிக்கும் தகவையாய். கேட்டார் பிணிக்கும்னா, those people, even if they have not heard, those who are hearing, you have to tie him with your speech. கேட்டார் பிணிக்கும் தகவை கேளாரும் வேட்பு மொழிவதாம் சொல். Even if the people who do not listen, your speech should make them at least lend their ear to hear it. So, கேட்டார் பிடிக்கும் தகவையாய் தகையாவாய் கேளாரும் வேட்பு மொழிவதாம் சொல். தொகச்சொல்லி தூவாத நீக்கி நகைச்சொல்லி நன்றி பயப்பதாம் தூது. 635. A person who is working as an ambassador to the king, he should have this quality of speaking. What is that speaking? Togacholi. Togacholi means in a concise form, you have to say, Tuvada Niki, unnecessary things you have to do. Nagacholi, you should make him pleasant. Nandi Payapadam Tu. The Tuduvan should have all these type of qualities. And Durgapir also makes statements. Different statements are there. I will give only one. Arya Purulvayin Yadu Yavan Yennum Ayiru Kilaviyum Arya Purulvayin Sariyatun. If you want to make a question and you are asking a question about some unknown things, you should make use of this Yadu and Yaman as question markers in your question. So when he talks about question marker, question is obviously he has several occasions are there where he talks about speech. For example, how a businessman should reply to a person who is asking for certain things. And he also says, for example, குறித்தான் கூற்றம் தெரிந்து that is 539. A speaker, when he is speaking, he should make the ambiguity clear. That is the idea of that thing. For example, you have the word country. Country may refer to country, that is Pacific country, and country, Marathiyar country. So country is the word which is ambiguous in nature. So Krypton, it means those who want to explain the word country, he should use it in such a way that you use the verbs, appropriate verbs, and thereby make the difference. Also he says that country, for example, for on country, the facility country, near Ooty Varakave. For country, near Kwaichi Varakave. So in that way, a person when he is speaking, he should make unambiguous statements. The ambiguous statement should be made unambiguous. So obviously he has to use certain expressions in order to disambiguate something. Okay. Now the last point, pragmat is how to teach. It's a very difficult thing. For example, you can teach the structure, you can teach morphology, you can teach the syntax, you can teach the semantics also on the basis of synonym, etc. But how to teach the intention and expressing the intention, how we will speak, that is really a problem. And it is pointed out that the children normally make use of certain utterances. First, they will make use of the gestures, etc. And the actual utterances for revealing your intention, etc., will be coming later. So, what the parents should do is they should create a situation of role play. Role play, that means they have to imitate what others are doing. They have to assume the role of a particular person in a conversation, situation, etc. Or they will create a situation of baking something, baking a cake or baking some this thing, and what type of utterances they have to use. So in that type of situation, that type of teaching is task-based teaching, etc. Role-based, play-based teaching. So you have to make the child push to that situation. So what they say is you have to create a situation. Instead of giving utterances, you should create a situation, and the utterances you have to select, relate them, and thereby make them imbibe what type of utterances they have to make according to the speech acts they make. Another thing is you should make them aware. When you're making some kind of mistakes in utterances, don't correct them. Just write models. A third thing they want to say is you should teach them how to be polite, how to be impolite, how you should give respect to the people, not respect to the people. So such type of social linguistic competence you will be given. In our tuition competence, etc., you will be given. Thereby, you will be creating a situation that is more important. In that way, you have to teach. So it is a difficult type of task, and you should do it with the help of the context, creation of tasks, and making them utterances. If they are wrong, you should give the right model, and in that way you have to teach them. So I cannot bring right now all the items, but just this sitting teaching, it requires another type of lecture, and the language teachers may be interested in doing such type of things. And so teaching, what I point out is you have to create a situation. You have to create the utterances related to that. You have to combine them, unite them, and give some kind of task for the child to imbibe the situation, imbibe the speech acts, imbibe the utterances, and relate to them. So that is the type of things we have to create in order to make the children learn grammatic aspects and grammatic competence will be good. So that is all for today. I am very much thankful to you for listening to the lectures, and I would like to thank professors, particularly 17 and 68, for interacting with you, ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful, thought-provoking lecture, sir. So the floor is now open for discussion. We have few questions in the chat box. I can just read out the questions. Whether grammatical, this is from Renuka ma'am, whether grammatical knowledge or pragmatic knowledge is important to understand a conversation perfectly.
That is one of the aspects. As I have pointed out, grammatical competence is required, essential. Unless you have the grammatical competence of distinguishing what is grammatical and what is ungrammatical, your conversation will be a proper type of conversation. So that is the base. Second thing, you should have the semantic knowledge of relating, how to relate to the items, how to make use of synonyms, antonyms, and homophones forms, what is the items, etc. So that knowledge is also required. Besides, you should have the pragmatic knowledge, that is socio-linguistic knowledge. You should have knowledge about the illocution, that is intentions. You should have the knowledge of relating the utterances with the contextual factors, etc. You should be in a position to interpret things. from the conversation. And it is major. But as you have pointed out, without grammatical base, grammatical knowledge as a base, you cannot achieve a pragmatic. Sometimes people say that the conversational situation, even if you put it in a wrong way, wrong utterances, if you produce, people will understand. If they are well versed in that, people will understand. And that does not mean that you can talk always in an ungrammatical way only in a conversation. So to develop that one, you require basically grammatical competence and conversational and communicative competence based on grammatical competence. Okay? Is it clear?
Sir, one more question is there from Renuka. Questions are there from Renuka, ma'am. Is socio-linguistic knowledge different from pragmatic knowledge?
Yes.
Is socio-linguistic knowledge different from pragmatic knowledge?
Socio-linguistic knowledge is part of pragmatic knowledge. Part. That means you are talking about language use. Pragmatic knowledge involves language use knowledge. Language use means, as Joshua Fishman points out, with whom you are talking, when you are talking, where you are talking, what you are talking, what is the intention of your talking, what type of utterances, grammatical or ungrammatical you are talking. All these things together will come, and then only it will become man. So socio-linguistic knowledge is also a basic thing. So you have, they classify this pragmatic knowledge into two categories. For example, they say organizational knowledge, one thing. Organization means you should have grammatical knowledge and discourse knowledge. Then using knowledge, organizational knowledge and the productive knowledge. And the productive knowledge only, you will have the socio-linguistic knowledge and speech act knowledge. So all four things are necessary for the best or the better communication. And added to that, if you are capable of using the language in an aesthetic way, I'm not going into that one, stylistic way of speaking. For example, use of alliteration, assonance, different figures of speech, and different type of poetic forms like this is all that aspects are different, That is part of literature, and that competence is another competence we call as literary competence. Making use of the language and using it, manipulating it, so that it will attract your attention, it will evoke your feelings, etc. So that is another type of competence, literary competence. And also under pragmatic, suppose you are writing poetry, you have pragmatic knowledge about writing poetry, and to that you should have the literary competence also. Making use of alliteration, different type of fun, making jokes, and all these things require different type of creative type of knowledge, and that is called literary competence.
So one more question from ma'am. What is the role of dialects in pragmatic understanding?
Dialects.
Yeah.
Dialect. There is no difference between dialects and language. Suppose I am a native speaker of a particular dialect, means I have all the facilities available in the language totally in my dialect itself. Perhaps the words and type of sentences I make may have some kind of structural variations, but all the conceptual things, etc., there is every possibility, there is every kind of expression available for selection in different type of dialects. Even if I am having a very low type of dialects, convenience, we take from 10 or 15 years back or 20 years back. If you listen to this, you get only the literary type of dialect will be used. Likewise, but nowadays you find this thing. What is that? I don't remember the words. Present today, this thing. This Kuchupati, if you listen to your computer, bring the Kuchupati, you don't understand what they will speak. Numbers like right? It's a dialect, no? The dialect has the capacity to use words referring to Kadal, Kalyanam, Angu, etc. So, no dialect is considered to be disqualified when compared to language. The literary language alone is not the qualified type of language. Of course, it has some kind of more words may be there, like Arabian Tamil. You have different type of words available. Literary Tamil may have margin over this thing. But dialects also have equal potential for expressing whatever you want to express. So we cannot make any difference between language and dialect. Every dialect is potentially useful. It has a fund of choices available for making poetry, for making any kind of conversation, speech, etc. So dialect is also equally important like literary language.
Thank you, Professor. Very good informative session. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Professor Muralidharan has raised a question. Creating situation is okay for children. What about adults?
Even adults also. For example, if they are not brought out in a creative type of situation, you can bring out a creative situation. And I know several people, those who study in Tamil in Central Institute of Indian Languages, actually mother tongue speakers, Marathi or Hindi, other types of speakers, they have a lot of creative potential in them, and only the language was not sufficient for them to express their creativity. They have developed in such a way, one person, I have forgotten this, he used to write poetry very nicely in Tamil language, better than the normal person. So the creative acumen is one thing, the creativity, whether there is a dispute also whether creativity is created or it is actually natural. So natural or created. And you have the debate also. But sometimes naturally it comes to some people. Even some children. I had an occasion to listen to a child. When the mother was actually spreading the washed clothes, the water drops were falling actually. The child was asking the mother, "Mummy, why this bedsheet is crying?" So here, we are giving a situation, a deviant type of expression, you feel that why the fellow is making such a statement. No, it's a creative type of thing, identifying what is creativity actually. If you are able to connect one thing with a lot of other things, you have the creativity. What the poets are doing is actually associating certain concepts with some other concepts and sequencing them in a particular fashion. You take all Pudu Kaviri, wonderful things they do, because the connectivity, that actually involves the creativity. So connectivity, if you are capable of connecting, and sometimes people also nowadays making some kind of medical practice, they say that your brain, it has the capacity to absorb a lot of oxygen and release this thing. Each cell has the capacity to absorb more oxygen. Then your brain will be a creative brain. But the research is going on, they are not capable of doing it because sometimes it will lead to some kind of destructive type of things also. Pass on a lot of oxygen to that. So creativity, of course, it's an important thing. It makes you feel enhanced, emotional. But from a linguistic point of view, I will say, if you have the capacity to associate immediately a lot of things, you take any poetry, any poem, the concept is there and association, a lot of associations will be there, and you have to put it in a proper order, in a stylistic way. So two things are important. One is manipulation of language and manipulation of the concepts and relating them in a hiding way or overt way, etc. So that even simple poems will be more creative. I want to give an example for that when I talk about conceptual this thing. One poem from Kamemani, how a child is actually given this creative potential. How the milk is actually converted into ghee. அம்மா பாலை கறந்துடுவாள், பாலை காய்ச்சி ஆற வைப்பாள், ஆறின பாலில் உறைவிடுவாள், உறைவிட்ட பால் தயிராகும், தயிரை கடைந்தால் மோராகும், மோரில் வெண்ணெய் திரண்டு வரும், வெண்ணெயில் அப்பம் சுற்றிடலாம், நீயும் நானும் தின்றிடுவோம். Now there is a transformation of the concept. The milk is becoming ghee, and ghee is for making edible. Final line is more important. It talks about unity. It talks about sharing. Neeyum naanum tindittom. That is the crux. It's like a punchline. It talks about the creativity. That means how certain things are so peaceful. When was there? I think of it. So creativity means associating things, and you have to use proper use of the artificial. So anybody can be. Your question is whether it can be created. Definitely it can be created. We have sufficient examples.
Thank you, Professor. Very informative, and this creating a situation among the children, it will be very easy, I think.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Is it in the same way with the adults?
And they should come to the situation of creating something. First of all, they should have a mood to, for example, be linguists. Many people sometimes writing stories. Interest I should have it. Then only it is. So theoretically we can say to be introduced to this creativity, provided the sufficient or proper environment, proper motivation, proper interest is created.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Dr. Dalita?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Can I ask?
Please.
Okay, one question. Good evening. I just want to know, in language teaching, mathematics principles cannot go alone, but it has to go with other aspects of language, like grammatical system and syntactical or semiotic and semantics, isn't it? That is the point you want to stress in your lecture.
Yes.
Am I clear?
Should go together. Yeah.
No.
Because
considering the pragmatic principle, we cannot use it alone in language teaching, but the other aspects of language also should be taken in while teaching a language. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the speaker uses language in different ways. The speaker uses language in different ways, and the speaker actually gives meanings of his own. So, unless you have some kind of background knowledge about the language, linguistic items, pronunciation, and tone, intonation, all these things, you cannot have that pragmatic thing. If you want to have a full-fledged pragmatic use of language, you should have all these items together. But we are creating a situation through language, teaching language, the phonology, grammar, morphology, grammar, syntax, semantics, etc. We are creating a base using language, and beyond the level of language, the speaker has some role to play, and that will be obtained only by a high knowledge.
Okay. Thank you. I enjoyed your lecture. We really enjoyed your lecture. A long time.
Sir, two more questions are there. One is from Dr. Vijaya. She has given a message that thanking you for your wonderful lecture, sir. Sir, you told syntactic activities, semantic activities, pragmatic activities. The fourth one I did not understand, sir. Please explain.
Only these three things. Under pragmatic activity only, you have the activity of eidetic interpretation, you have the activity of producing speech acts, you have the activity of presupposing meanings and concepts, you have the activity of inferring something from the utterances. All these four will come under the pragmatic activity. So, totally, if you want to say pragmatic activity, you should have grammatical activity, semantic activity, and the speaker's activity, that is specifically to the speaker. Speaker's own activity, it is not based on the language. So, all these will combine together for you from a pragmatic activity in total. That is based on the sign relationship, sign study. You know, the sign can be studied or sign can be used only if you have knowledge about grammar, knowledge about semantics, knowledge about concepts, knowledge about the speaker's way of interpreting things. So that is why some people give the definition for pragmatics as speaker meaning study. Study of the meaning given by the speaker. Whereas study of the meaning of language units is called as referential meaning of semantics. Semantics. So this pragmatic is solely like years. Solely like meaning given in the context by the speaker. That is solely like the other one is called the meaning of the words, sentences of the language. So one is language oriented meaning, language entities meaning. This one is contextual meaning or speakers. So pragmatics is language use meaning. We can say it is a study of language use, the study of how a language is being used by the speaker, how language is interpreted by the speaker, how the language used by the speaker. So you have different definitions for pragmatics.
Thank you for this information. Sir, there is one more question from Prof. Rumaraj.
Yeah.
When to talk, how to talk is coming from inherent knowledge or it should be learned one. Why we are not including the pragmatics in school syllabus?
Because as I told you, it involves task-based teaching. If it is a grammar teaching, you can have grammatical rules are there, grammatical items are there. For example, noun, verb, adjective, verb, all these categories they can give. There are different types of rules for making this thing. You know, for example, inflectional rules are there, derivational rules are there, compounding. Tohai, for example, in Tamil we say Tohai. So concrete items are there. Okay, so the teaching is easy. But in a task-based situation, the teacher has a tremendous role to play. He has to design the situation. For example, suppose you are going to a market, and how you will negotiate with the persons. If you are going to the market, that means you have to create a situation and to do it. We have conducted some kind of research, for example, speech act. For all that, conductor bus going in and ticket if we get we have got some 20-25 type of utterances. And they were the means not like a ticket. Not the Chulare Lali road. Some people say children they will ensure a conversation. For example, in the bus you will say Singapore. Okay. While I connected to me in the first on the Lali road, the left side. ஒரு கான்வர்சேஷன் முடிஞ்ச பிறகுதான் என்ன டிக்கெட் கொடுக்கணுமா வேண்டாமா, இல்ல எனக்கு அங்க போகல வேண்டாம், அப்ப இறங்கிடுங்களா, இறங்குங்க, இவ்வளவு தூரம் வந்தீங்கல்ல அதுக்கு காசு கொடுங்க. The conversation goes on like that. So even in one situation like this, asking the ticket from a conductor, or I think we have a dissertation on இன்னொருத்தர் அந்த பேப்பரை படிக்கணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு பேப்பரை வாங்குறதுக்கு எப்படி எல்லாம் அவங்க அட்டென்ஸ் பண்ணாங்க. And பாத்தீங்கன்னா lot of trends. Yes, correct. They say, சார் ஒரே ஒரு பேஜ் மட்டும் கொடுத்து நான் பார்த்துருக்கேன் சார், நீங்க லாஸ்ட் பேஜ் நீங்க ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ் பார்க்க மாட்டீங்கல்ல, அதை கொடுங்க நான் ஏன் சார் ரொம்ப நேரம் ஆகும் சார் இது படிக்கிறதுக்கு, சீக்கிரம் கொடுத்தீங்கன்னா நான் பார்த்துட்டு காப்பி டீ கொடுத்துட்டு போயிடுவேன். புரியா பேப்பரை ஐயா ஒரே ஒரு நிமிஷம் பக்கத்துல ஒரே ஒரு காலத்தை மட்டும் பார்த்தேன். So likewise, you will have a lot of items available. So what pragmatic has to teach is, you have to create a situation, and the situation of interaction between whom, and what type of utterances normally will be used, and abnormally sometimes utterances will be used. Also, politeness will not be there, then honor will not be there. So such type of this situation, you have to collect all those, and then you have to make a. But such type of studies also have been undertaken. For example, விமான நிலையத்தில் போய் டிக்கெட் எடுக்கணும் அல்லது விமானத்துக்கு இது வரணும்னா என்னெல்லாம் நீங்க கேட்பீங்க. Through computer you can interact with them, interactive situation. ELISA, for example, interactive module is there. You can ask all type of questions related to that situation where ticket booking is involved. You cannot ask about என் ஒய்ஃப் வெயிட், என் ஒய்ஃப் வந்து 50 கிலோகிராம் வெயிட்டை தூக்கிட்டு போக முடியுமா, அந்த மாதிரிலாம் கேட்க முடியாது. நீங்க டிக்கெட் வாங்கணும்னா என்னென்ன நீங்க கேட்கணும்னா அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இதை டீலிமிட் பண்ணிக்கிட்டு அந்த மாதிரி பண்ணீங்கன்னா இட் இஸ் பாசிபிள் டு interact, teach. So task based teaching is, the role play is very important. And one more thing is, you should not correct it. Even if they produce wrong answers, you should not correct it. You should give them good model so that they can practice. In language teaching also it happens like that. You have several types of wrong expressions being used by the children, and you have to give the, don't correct it, you have to give the right expression. For instance, ஒன்று எங்கள் வீட்டுக்கு வந்திருந்தான், குழந்தைச்சிருக்கு, ஒருத்தன் எங்கள் வீட்டுக்கு வந்தா, ஒருத்தன் எங்கள் வீட்டுக்கு, 2 பேர் வந்தோன்னு அது என்ன சொன்னது, 20 வந்திருந்தா 20 வந்திருந்தான். So it is given a model. So don't correct it. நீங்க என்ன சொல்லணும்னா, ஒருவன் ஒருத்தி, ஒன்னு சொன்னா ஒருவன் ஒருத்தி மாத்திரம் சொல்லணும். சொன்னீங்கன்னா the correction will be automatically taken care of. If you correct them, they will try to produce the same type of mistakes again. So it's a tedious task. That is why service designing and other things are difficult. I'm taking a lot of time with it. Okay. So that is the service.
Sir, we have one more question. This is the last question from our director. Professor Sarnya wants to ask a question, sir.
Okay.
Sir, good evening, sir. With immense pleasure and my deep gratitude, I am indebted to you, not for now only, for ever and ever. Last one clarification, sir. It's not a question. Let me know the difference between discourse knowledge and pragmatic knowledge. Actually, is there any overlapping between them or any interface? I want to know that. Thank you, sir.
There is, of course, discourse knowledge is pertaining to the objective type of things. Objective in the sense, you should be in a position. Discourse itself has been three aspects. For example, discourse has a structure. Discourse has meaning. Discourse has intentions. Discourse has social relevance. Certain discourses are preferred by the societies. Certain discourses are not preferred by the society. For example, the children the conversation is going on between the adults. The children are not supposed to interfere in their conversation, etc. So there are certain societies which deal with who has to speak, who etc. Okay. So the discourse itself has the grammatical aspect, semantic aspect, cultural aspect, intentional aspect or elocution aspect, and the social aspect. Along with it, you also have different types of styles. And if you are concentrating on that, the grammar will be left out. The pragmatic knowledge, when we say pragmatic knowledge, if we take discourse knowledge alone, the grammatical aspect will be left out. The utterance will not be discussed in detail. We're talking about the sequencing of utterances, one sequence of meanings, sequence of intentions, and in what social context, etc. That is why the communicative competence and the pragmatic competence, they incorporate all these types of competences together in order to have a better performance. If you are purely grammatically okay, sometimes you may not be able to produce properly. You have the capacity to produce, but you will produce it with all sorts of wrong utterances. So if you want to have a type of thing, overlapping is always there, as you have pointed, you are rightly pointing out. Overlapping is there, but this overlapping will be done in a specific way so that your communication will be more effective, more attractive, more intentional, more grammatical. So all these things are to be safeguarded in order to have a good interaction, a good conversation. And those people who study this conversation process, they say that some societies, they are reticent to conversation. Reticent means, if for example, if you go to Kota, if you ask some 10 or 15 questions, they answer. Some societies are reticent. Some societies are flowering, they give importance to not to see. And even the present day industries, for example, the IT industries, they actually put up more. The mapping should be always there. To manipulate it in such a way that one does not take receipt of the
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. I request other participants to please mute your mic because the speech is getting disturbed. Now, I welcome the Deputy Coordinator of this webinar, Dr. Thorai, to thank our eminent speaker for his wonderful today's lecture. Please, sir.
Good evening to everybody. It is my duty to say formal vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee and my own behalf. I thank our eminent professor, Shri Shunmugom, former head of the Department of Linguistics, Bharathiyar University, Coimbatore. Professor has given mind-blowing lecture on teaching pragmatic information in Tamil. Sir, you have explained very well the distinction between long and role, various language uses based on our purposes, explanation of the term speaking, types of signs, symbols and indices, difference among signs, symbols, index, various activities of speakers based on syntax, semantics, semiotics and pragmatics, various speech acts and various competence such as lexical competence, grammatical competence, semantic competence, pragmatic competence and also socio-cultural competence and so on. I hope all the participants have enjoyed your lecture and more benefited. Thank you, sir. Further, I extended my sincere thanks to all the participants. Your keen interest and your cooperation and patient listening for success of this session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
Hello, sir.
என்ன முடிச்சிச்சுல